The shifting sands of Middle Eastern geopolitics have always been prone to sudden, violent realignments, but nothing in the modern era has sent shockwaves through the Islamic Republic of Iran quite like the quiet, systematic emergence of a strategic partnership between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Ukraine. For decades, Tehran's strategic calculus was built on the assumption that its primary regional rival, Riyadh, was geographically isolated, overly dependent on Western conventional military systems, and vulnerable to asymmetric warfare waged via proxy networks. However, the signing of an expansive defense cooperation agreement in Jeddah and the active formulation of a 10-year strategic security arrangement have completely upended this dynamic. The realization that Saudi financial power is directly fusing with Ukraine's battle-tested, high-tech asymmetric warfare capabilities has triggered an acute sense of strategic panic within the highest echelons of the Iranian leadership, leaving the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps scrambling to recalibrate its entire regional doctrine. The core of the anxiety gripping Tehran lies in the highly specific, deeply technical nature of this bilateral alignment. For years, Iran's primary tool of regional coercion and power projection has been its vast, low-cost arsenal of loitering munitions and one-way attack drones, exemplified by the Shahed series. These systems, designed to overwhelm traditional, multi-million-dollar Western air defense arrays through sheer saturation, had previously given Tehran and its proxy networks a distinct asymmetric advantage in conflicts spanning from the Yemeni border to the shipping lanes of the Persian Gulf. But in Ukraine, these exact same Iranian-engineered platforms have faced the most intensive, innovative, and data-driven counter-drone campaign in human history. By entering into a formal security pact with Kyiv, Riyadh has not merely purchased an anti-drone system, it has acquired the world's most sophisticated repository of operational data, electronic warfare tactics, and interception technology specifically designed to neutralize Iran's primary military export. The logistical and operational realities of this alliance began to manifest dynamically in early spring, when intelligence networks monitored a series of unannounced, high-level technical delegations traveling between Riyadh, Jeddah, and Ukrainian research facilities. These were not diplomatic courtesy calls, but intensive workshops where Ukrainian drone engineers, software developers, and electronic warfare specialists embedded directly with the Royal Saudi Air Defense Forces. The objective was immediate and lethal to Iranian interests, the rapid deployment of Ukrainian-designed autonomous interceptor drones along the kingdom's southwestern and eastern frontiers. These low-cost, jet-powered and propeller-driven interceptor platforms, which had already successfully neutralized thousands of Russian-operated Shahed drones over Eastern Europe, are being tailored specifically to intercept and destroy Iranian-origin aerial threats before they can reach critical Saudi energy infrastructure or municipal centers. To the military planners in Tehran, the technical proposition of this alliance represents a catastrophic neutralization of their deterrence model. For over a decade, Saudi Arabia had relied heavily on ultra-expensive, scarce interceptors like the MIM-104 Patriot and THAAD systems to defend against drone and missile salvos. This created a stark, unsustainable economic asymmetry where Riyadh was spending millions of dollars to shoot down drones that cost less than $20,000 to manufacture. The introduction of Ukrainian interceptor technology completely flips this economic equation. By utilizing domestically produced, AI-driven interceptor drones that hunt down incoming threats at a fraction of the cost, Saudi Arabia is building a highly sustainable, impenetrable kinetic screen. This development effectively strips Iran of its ability to economically bleed the kingdom through prolonged proxy attrition campaigns. The panic in Tehran intensified exponentially following reports that Saudi Arabia's state-backed energy giant, Saudi Aramco, had initiated direct investment tracks and procurement frameworks for specialized drone hunting technology from frontline Ukrainian developers. The convergence of unlimited Saudi capital with rapid, combat-tested Ukrainian engineering means that the evolution of these defensive systems will occur at a pace that Iran's heavily sanctioned domestic industrial base simply cannot match. Iranian intelligence assessments, reportedly circulated within the Supreme National Security Council, warn that within 18 months, Saudi Arabia could possess a completely automated, dense air defense envelope capable of rendering any conventional drone or low-altitude cruise missile strike utterly obsolete. The implications of this alliance extend far beyond the realm of purely defensive technology, introducing a profound offensive anxiety into Iran's strategic thinking. Ukraine's operational philosophy is deeply rooted in deep penetration asymmetric strikes against logistical hubs, command infrastructure, and energy facilities deep within enemy territory. The fear within the IRGC is that the strategic security arrangement includes the transfer of knowledge regarding the manufacturing and deployment of long-range, low-observable maritime attack drones and one-way strike munitions. If Saudi Arabia integrates these doctrines, the traditional geography of the Persian Gulf changes overnight. Tehran's domestic energy infrastructure, coastal military installations, and naval assets would suddenly find themselves vulnerable to highly deniable, swarming asymmetric attacks launched directly from the western shores of the Gulf, creating a mirror image of the very threat matrix Iran has utilized against its neighbors for decades. In response to this emerging reality, official rhetoric from Tehran has oscillated between aggressive posturing and profound diplomatic agitation. Iranian state media channels, usually highly coordinated in their output, have launched a series of sharp rhetorical attacks against Riyadh, accusing the kingdom of introducing extra-regional destabilizing elements into the delicate security architecture of the Middle East. Behind the scenes, Iranian diplomatic emissaries have reportedly made frantic representations to their counterparts in Moscow, demanding that Russia exert its considerable leverage over both the global energy markets and its diplomatic channels to disrupt the growing Saudi-Ukrainian nexus. However, Moscow's ability to intervene is severely limited by its own delicate operational dependencies, leaving Tehran isolated in its mounting vulnerability. The geopolitical irony of the situation has not been lost on international observers. For years, Iran had deepened its military integration with the Russian Federation, providing thousands of kamikaze drones and ballistic systems to aid the campaign in Eastern Europe, believing that this partnership would secure its position as an unassailable regional power in the Middle East. Instead, that very deployment allowed Ukraine to perfect the art of counter-Shahed warfare, developing the exact technologies and tactics that are now being exported to Saudi Arabia to neutralize Iran's regional dominance. Tehran's European gamble has systematically boomeranged, delivering the keys to dismantling its asymmetric military power directly into the hands of its primary geopolitical rival in the Gulf. As the bilateral agreements between Kyiv and Riyadh move from foundational frameworks to active, multi-billion-dollar contracts involving joint production facilities, the balance of power in the Middle East is undergoing a quiet but irreversible transformation. The traditional paradigm of relying on slow, politically cumbersome Western defense acquisitions has been replaced by an agile, transaction-oriented security bridge that links the economic colossus of the Gulf with the battle-hardened innovation hub of Eastern Europe. For an increasingly anxious Iran, the realization that its primary tools of geopolitical leverage are being systematically decoded and neutralized in real time has introduced a profound crisis of confidence, proving that in the modern era of high-tech warfare, the ultimate vulnerability is a failure to adapt to the speed of asymmetric innovation. To truly understand the depth of the institutional paralysis currently gripping Tehran's defense establishment, one must examine the specific systemic failures this alliance exposes within Iran's long-term military doctrine. For decades, the Islamic Republic constructed its regional deterrence strategy around the concept of forward defense and asymmetric technological saturation. Knowing it could never compete with the conventional air superiority of the United States or the sheer budgetary power of the Gulf monarchies, the IRGC invested heavily in the mass production of unguided rockets, ballistic missiles, and eventually, low-observable loitering munitions. This strategy was highly successful in an era when conventional militaries relied on heavy, centralized, and slow-moving defensive hardware. But the Saudi-Ukrainian alliance does not oppose this doctrine with traditional conventional means, it opposes it with an even more refined, rapid, and intelligent form of asymmetric warfare. Ukrainian defense doctrine, forged under the pressure of existential survival against a numerically superior adversary, is characterized by decentralized command structures, rapid software iteration, and the immediate integration of battlefield data into manufacturing lines. When this operational philosophy is introduced into the Saudi military apparatus, it begins to dismantle the rigid, top-down bureaucratic structures that have historically hindered the operational effectiveness of Gulf militaries. The joint security agreements explicitly detail the creation of co-production facilities on Saudi soil, meaning that drone interceptors, electronic warfare jamming suites, and autonomous marine assets will be manufactured, modified, and upgraded locally based on real-time data feeds coming directly from both the Ukrainian front and the borders of the Arabian Peninsula. This creates a living, evolving defense ecosystem that can adapt to new Iranian drone modifications in a matter of days, rather than the years typically required to update Western-supplied military hardware. The financial architecture supporting this alliance has also triggered intense alarm within Iran's economic and strategic planning ministries. Heavily burdened by years of international sanctions, Tehran's ability to finance its military research and development is severely constrained, relying on clandestine networks and illicit energy sales to maintain its industrial momentum. Saudi Arabia, by contrast, possesses unmatched sovereign capital reserves. By funneling billions of dollars into joint ventures with Ukrainian defense firms, Riyadh is essentially underwriting the rapid expansion of a parallel defense industry that operates entirely outside the traditional constraints of Western political approval and export control regulations. This allows for the unrestricted development and deployment of highly sophisticated, autonomous kinetic systems that can be utilized with total operational freedom, eliminating the diplomatic leverage Tehran previously held through its ability to exploit Western political hesitation in the region. Furthermore, the intelligence-sharing component of the strategic arrangement has sent shockwaves through the Ministry of Intelligence of the Islamic Republic. Ukraine's comprehensive intelligence apparatus has spent years mapping out the exact supply chains, manufacturing nodes, procurement front companies, and technical specifications of Iranian military hardware. This detailed institutional knowledge is now being systematically integrated into the security infrastructure of the Gulf. For Tehran, this means that the anonymity and deniability of its clandestine procurement networks have been permanently compromised. The specific signatures of components smuggled through international waters, the precise frequencies utilized by Iranian electronic guidance systems, and the structural vulnerabilities of their guidance software are now fully understood by the very forces tasked with shooting them down or destroying them at their source. The anxiety within the Iranian leadership is also heavily driven by the sudden, unexpected diversification of Saudi Arabia's geopolitical relationships. For decades, Tehran could accurately predict Saudi behavior by analyzing the political climate in Washington or Brussels. If a Western administration was hesitant to engage in regional conflicts, Riyadh's foreign policy would naturally adjust toward caution and containment. By establishing a direct, independent security line with Kyiv, the kingdom has decoupled its immediate survival strategy from the shifting political tides of Western capitals. This new strategic autonomy makes Saudi Arabia a far more unpredictable and dangerous adversary for Tehran, as the decision-making process regarding defensive deployments and asymmetric deterrence measures is now concentrated entirely between Riyadh and a battle-tested partner that has shown zero hesitation in taking bold, high-stakes military actions. The maritime dimension of this secret alliance introduces a terrifying new variable for the IRGC Navy, which has long considered the fast attack craft and asymmetric naval mine strategies of the Persian Gulf to be its exclusive domain of dominance. Ukraine's historic success in completely neutralizing a major conventional naval fleet through the innovative deployment of low-cost, explosive-laden uncrewed surface vessels has been thoroughly analyzed by Saudi naval strategists. Under the new defense cooperation frameworks, the co-production of advanced maritime strike drones is being prioritized for deployment in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. These highly autonomous, low-profile vessels can operate undetected in shallow coastal waters, providing Riyadh with a devastating counter-naval capability that can instantly paralyze Iranian shipping, target offshore oil platforms, and intercept fast attack vessels within their own territorial waters, fundamentally dismantling the naval leverage Tehran has used to threaten global maritime choke points for a generation. As the reality of this paradigm shift settles across the geopolitical landscape, the internal debate within Tehran has grown increasingly fractured. A younger generation of military technologists within the IRGC is reportedly pushing for a complete restructuring of their production pipelines, recognizing that their current generation of drone technology is rapidly losing its efficacy against the evolving Saudi-Ukrainian defensive umbrella. However, the systemic economic constraints and technological isolation imposed by international sanctions make a rapid, domestic technological revolution highly unlikely. The leadership finds itself trapped in a strategic bottleneck of its own making, the very systems they relied upon to project power and enforce deterrence are being rendered obsolete by an innovative, capital-fueled alliance that they never anticipated, leaving the Islamic Republic increasingly exposed, vulnerable, and profoundly terrified of a future where their asymmetric edge has been decisively blunted.